and thank you for joining us at the ever-improving No Soundbites Allowed podcast. My name is Michael Vasquez. We thank you for joining us in this adventure of describing the politics that go on in our nation on a personal and local level as often as possible, giving you, the audience, more than just 30 seconds to understand what's going on in our nation. We look forward to joining you as we go. Just sit back, enjoy the ride. Please remember, if you like the episodes, like it, share it, let other people know, and if you can, please donate, even if it's $2, even if it's $5, because it all makes a difference. We thank you, and here we go. Hi, everyone. Thank you for joining me. It's Michael Voss, and we're doing the No Soundbites Allowed simulcast with Facebook Live, and I'm always happy to be here with you. For some reason, it seems that Facebook was giving me a problem connecting. Shocking that Facebook would give a problem to any conservative if they're trying to do a Facebook Live or any other kind of content. They're not known for doing anything like that, of course. And so, but I did get connection up, and I hope everyone can hear me okay. Hello, Tina. Hey, it's good to see you there. And give me a thumbs up just to let me know that you can hear it all right. Again, Facebook was acting up, so there's been a little bit of trouble with that. And I would just want to make sure everyone can hear me properly as we're speaking. Can you hear me? Oh, perfect. Okay. Thank you, Tina. And so there's a lot of stuff that I want to talk about today. A lot of things that I think are quite interesting and will be useful for everyone. And I don't want this in the way too much, but I want to make sure I can hear myself. And one of the big things, and of course, first and foremost, I appreciate and thank every single one of you who come in and listen and get involved and ask questions about the various issues. That's what I love to do, and that's why I'm very happy about doing this. I appreciate each and every one of you with everything that you do, because you guys make it all worthwhile. And that's why I'm here. That's why I'm here, because of you. So I thank you guys all for that. Now, there's a lot of things I want to talk about, but most importantly, at any point, please let me know your questions. You tell me what you want to talk about. I'm here to help answer questions, give insight. What I like to do is ask questions of any of the elected officials of what's going on out there, and then from the facts, figure out what's the most logical answer. And we try and go forward with that. You may agree, you may not, but I think that in having a proper and honest discussion, we get to more answers than any other way. Now, one of the first things I do want to go over is something that you may not have seen yet. And okay. So my sound effects are a little bit off at the moment, and I'm not sure if I'll keep going with them because they're not quite coming out as clean as I would like them to. But the news flash is the fact that we have, you may not have seen it yet, I did an interview yesterday, and it's an exclusive interview with Donna Lupardo yesterday, and it was fantastic. We had a very nice conversation, 38 minutes, and that's something you just don't see a lot in all of the news. And by the way, I want to stop for a second and say, Tina DeBella, thank you for being involved. Von Austin, I see you're here as well. Thank you for that. Vic Furman is watching. I see Frank Johnson there. So I thank you all for joining us. And of course, being involved in any of your questions. Now, I want to start with Donna Lupardo because I did speak with her yesterday. It was an exclusive interview, 38 minutes. I mean, think about that. How often have you heard in any of the news media locally that Donna Lupardo's been involved, or any elected official is on there for 38 minutes? And this is, I published it unedited. That's exactly how long we were speaking, all the conversation we had. And it was great because we actually got to delve into some of the issues, some of the votes, some of the things that she's working on for the public and why. I think that's one of the most important things. Not just, oh, here's your vote and here's the tally or the bill name, which I included. And that's a big thing, and I'll get into that in a second. But also, why did you make the vote that you made? I mean, what's the reason behind it? Because I can tell you that she voted for the Student Journalism Free Speech Act. And you'll say to yourself, why? Don't students get to do that already? And we're talking about college, we're talking about high school and middle school, all the students. Don't they get to, it's a newspaper. They're doing a school newspaper. Don't they get to be like any other journalist and write whatever they want? No. And that's something that I didn't know about until recently. And I saw that she had voted on that, and it's one of the bills she put forward. And that's an important issue, to know that we're teaching our kids from the start, what is the First Amendment? What is freedom of speech? What is being able to properly express an idea and to present an issue that is fair and clear and unbiased? And we don't see that a lot. And it starts early. And believe it or not, in most of the school newspapers, not only in New York State, but across the country, they don't get that. There is, it's edited, it's censored, it's prevented for them to be able to, and she relayed a couple of great examples, and I know of one over at SUNY Broome, where the newspapers were, they had legitimate stories, and yet they were not able to put those out there. I mean, think about this. Imagine if the college Republicans at Binghamton University were not able to put out the news story about the hashtag 2016 Stop White People. Remember that story a year ago? Major story, went across the entire nation, presented by students. And if the university wasn't allowing them to do that, and without this law they could, then those students would never be able to tell people about a story about racism in Binghamton University promoted by Citizen Action to try and that's promoting racism. I mean, really, that's a story that people need to know. Hello, Heather. I see you joined us, and I see Chris Jones as well. And so I'm happy to see you guys. And so I think that's an important thing. And that's one of the bills that she was working on. Another bill that she was working on that I thought was kind of important was in terms of the red flag legislation. Now, as everyone may or may not know, I am an absolute advocate of the Second Amendment, a huge advocate of the Second Amendment, and I try and defend it and protect it as much as possible. That's a known fact. But, and in general, we see that Assemblywoman Donna Lupardo is usually also an advocate of the Second Amendment in most bills, but not always, not consistently. And sometimes she isn't. And I have a difference with her, and we brought it up, and it was a good conversation where we were talking about the red flag bill, which I've talked to so far with Assemblyman Clifford Crouch, who voted for one of the bills. There's 5 that exist out there, and I tried to speak with Anthony Brindisi about his vote on both of these bills. Now, just as a real quick run through, red flag legislation is very simply this. And depending on the bill, because the wording's slightly different in each case, but essentially, someone can go to a court without your knowledge, and they can go out there and they can tell the court that you're a danger either to yourself and or the community. And the judge will look that over, issue a warrant, and then the police will take that warrant, go to your house, knock on the door, and this is the first time you get notified, is when they come to your house and come to your door and say, hey, we're taking all of your firearms. Here's a warrant. And I'm sure you'll be quite surprised. Now, and they'll go through your home and they'll take all your firearms at that moment. And in addition to that, because New York State is a reporting state, in tow, along with the police, will be Child Protective Services. Because if your home is so dangerous that they have to take the firearms out of your home, well, your home is too dangerous for your kids. So the government will also take your kids away. That is a direct consequence of that law that no one talks about because no one likes having their kids taken away. And then you, wonderfully, having just been notified about this, you get to spend the next year of your life, plus all the cost of lawyers and court fees, trying to prove that you're innocent of being a danger to yourself and your community, as well as trying to get your kids back. Which, according to the lawyers I've spoken to, we're talking about tens of thousands of dollars, not including the time that you have to take away from your work and your life to be able to do this. So essentially, this bill, the red flag bills in New York State, say that you are guilty until proven innocent and that you need to be punished first. You receive a punishment for an accusation that you then have to prove is incorrect. And your remedy is you get to have your guns back, you may get your kids back, and that's it. And then it goes away. You don't get to face your accuser. You don't even, according to what I've seen in the law, you don't even necessarily know who your accuser will be. You never get to go into court and defend yourself. Nothing, and this is the problem. And this is a major, major problem, in my view. Now, and to the credit of Assemblywoman Donna Lupardo, and you can listen to the interview. It's on the No Soundbites Allowed podcast, so you can look it up for yourself and listen to it for 38 minutes. We had a great conversation. She mentions that, well, this is a process that may be able to help people who are looking to commit suicide, and it may be able to prevent suicides. And that is the largest category of gun deaths. In fact, it's one of the numbers that people don't talk about. When they say that there's 30,000, 35,000 deaths by firearms in the nation, they forget that 2/3 of them, roughly 23,000 in any given year, are actually suicides. Gun violence is actually quite low in the nation, but that's something to take away. And she's looking at it from the perspective of having that. And she did admit that this is a very flawed law that has a lot of problems and it needs to be fixed. And I agree with her because I don't have anything against trying to protect people who might commit suicide. That's perfectly fine. If we can help them and prevent suicide deaths, that's always a good thing. But to infringe on the Second Amendment rights of everyone just because you're trying to help someone who might or might not commit suicide and take away their due process to make them guilty before innocent, to convict them and punish them, well, I disagree with that. That part, that's a big issue and that's a big problem, and we need to fix that. By the way, Jennifer James is with us, and so is Ed Carroll, and I thank you guys for being here. I'm happy to speak with you. So that was a very interesting conversation, and it kind of goes, it's interesting because I've spoken now with 3 people, as I said, Assemblyman Clifford Crouch, Assemblywoman Donna Lupardo, and Assemblyman Anthony Brindisi. And I've asked them about these votes that they've made on the red flag bills. Now, Clifford Crouch, Assemblyman Cliff Crouch, he's voted 2 ways. He's gone both ways on these bills. He voted for it and he voted against it. I don't understand exactly where his position is. When I asked him about it, he thought his answer was very simply that he's looking to help protect people. Okay, that's his answer. He wanted to protect some people. It wasn't very clear. And you can listen, and I did an interview with him as well when we covered this issue, and you can listen to his own words on how he spoke about that and what he thought. I wasn't exactly thrilled with the answer, but I understand his reasoning. It's similar to that of Assemblywoman Donna Lupardo, that they're looking to protect the public. I just don't believe this does that. I don't believe it achieves that goal at all. But again, the great thing is you get to hear word for word everything in their answer. And it's not one of those little 10-second answers that you can see in the news where you get 28 seconds to cover, 2 hours of information. You get to hear it all. So I do invite you to go to the No Soundbites Allowed podcast and listen to those exclusive interviews on these very serious issues. Now, the third person who I did ask about this red flag bill scenario, fiasco, I would believe. If you like the Second Amendment, I think you may think it's a fiasco. By the way, Tim Schurer, it's good to see you here. I asked Anthony Brindisi, who happens to be running for the New York 22nd District as the Democratic candidate. I've known Anthony for 5, maybe 6 years now. He's done interviews with me. He's answered questions for articles with me. As much as he likes to now try and say, that he doesn't consider me a member of the press, which I am, because I'm a political commentator. I'm not a reporter, which I've never said I was, but I am a member of the press. I am a political commentator. He's answered my questions on articles I've written over the years. But because he's running an election now, he wants to, because he doesn't like my position and asking him questions, he tries to defer and deflect it and say, well, Today, you're not news because I don't like it. That's a nice try, Anthony. It doesn't work. But Anthony's answer to the question about red flag bills is probably the worst I've heard of anyone speaking about this subject. And a lot of people don't know. It's been hidden and it's been kept very, very quiet from the public. But Anthony Brindisi's answer, and there is a video of this. You can go to YouTube and look up the MV Consulting Inc. Page, and you will find it, or you can just search for it on the internet, and you will find Anthony Brindisi's answer on red flag laws. And Anthony Brindisi's answer is, first, he walks off of camera. I was at his event in Owego, New York. I was there. I was with Anthony. I was taping the event. And Anthony, I asked one question. I was unable to ask one. And it was about his vote. Why? And very simply asked him, why did you vote for the red flag bills? It's a simple question. Anthony then described what the red flag bills are. And if you listen to his description versus to the description that Clifford Crouch and Donna Lupardo and every lawyer I've spoken to agree, and including the wording of the bill itself, Anthony's answer is, well, it's perfectly this is due process. That a judge goes in, there's a court case, and a judge makes a decision, and then a warrant comes out, and then you get to try and appeal that. So it's due diligence. I'm sorry, Anthony, that is a lie to the public. That is a lie. You do not get to face your accuser. You do not get to go in front of the judge and say that I am innocent, that I am not a threat to my friends, my family, or myself. You cannot. That is a lie. That is a lie based in the wording of the bill as well as its function. And every other person I've asked about it knows that and agrees. Everyone. All the lawyers, all of his fellow assembly members. He then goes and walks off of camera. Now I'm taping him for 45 minutes at that point. For the entire time, he stood in front of everyone, and I have 45 minutes of him standing there speaking to a couple of people, giving his answers. When I ask my question, he walks off of camera, purposefully looking at the camera, so that he cannot be recorded clearly saying these words. Sorry, Anthony, I still could get the audio. I still taped it, and I presented it. So he misrepresented what the bill does and didn't tell people that they lose their due process. He didn't tell people that they can lose their guns, they can lose their kids, that they are guilty before innocent, and that they will be punished because of hearsay. And then at that point, he goes on to say, well, that's great, I'm done, and goes on. Never answers the question of why did he vote for this. That troubles me. See, I don't have a problem with Donna Lupardo or Clifford Crouch saying that they voted for a bill because they have a certain belief. And they told me what their belief was. They told me their answer. I may not agree with it. I may not agree with the law. And we all have that right. Just because they voted for it doesn't mean that they're brilliant. It doesn't mean that they have all the answers or that the law is perfect. What it means is they had a reason for it. Okay, I can respect that reason. I can agree with it or disagree with it, as you can with any elected official. And then we get to judge, and we can tell them, as I did to Assemblywoman Donna Lupardo, that no, I don't agree with this bill. We need to fix this. Do not let this go through because it is denying people due process. There is a major problem here. And that's how the process is supposed to work. They represent us. They can tell us why they think this is a good idea. We get to tell them, no, you're wrong. Change it. That's the way our legal system is supposed to work. That is the way our legislative system is supposed to work. We get to have that impact. Well, with Anthony Brindisi, his thought is, well, I voted for this. You don't understand what I'm talking about, so I'm not going to listen to you. I'm sorry, Anthony, that's not how you represent people. And yes, we do understand what's going on. And just because you don't like taking questions, and just because you don't have a good answer, doesn't mean that we don't get to hear your answer. You're representing us. He's asking for our votes. Well, that means you have to tell us what you're doing, and you have to tell us why. And I'm picking him specifically, not because he's running for the New York 22nd District, not because he's running against the incumbent Congresswoman Claudia Tenney, not because he's a Democrat. So is Donna Lupardo. She's a Democrat too. And Clifford Crouch is a Republican. So I don't care. It's about the issue. It's about due process. It's about protecting our lives and protecting our Second Amendment rights. I could care less that Anthony Brindisi is a Democrat or what he's running for. I care about, why did you vote? Why did you vote for a flawed law that denies people due process? And why are you lying to the public about what the law does? That is where I'm troubled. That is the problem. And he may not like taking questions, but he has to answer them because he wants our votes. He's elected. And I do not approve of that. You know, I can respect Donna Lupardo's position, and I do, and I told her that, and I did. I don't agree with the conclusion. I don't agree with the law, but I agree that she presented it, her reasoning, and I am satisfied. That is her reason. I respect that. That's fine. And I've done that, and that's with anyone I've ever interviewed. Okay, let's be fair. Here is a question about a law. Give me the reasoning behind it. What does the law do? Is it a good law? Is it a bad law? Is it flawed? What is your reason for voting for it? Why should we support you in that? And if not, then let me tell you why. And we can have that discussion reasonably, like adults, like American citizens, and have that conversation, because that's the way the process is supposed to work. It seems Anthony Brindisi didn't get that. And again, these are all factual things. You may not like them or you may disagree. That's fine, but you can see. There's an interview with Donna Lupardo from yesterday. About 2 weeks ago, there was an interview with Assemblyman Clifford Crouch. You can listen to that. And there is a video, which is about 7 minutes on YouTube, where you can see Anthony Brindisi live and see exactly what he said and how to my question. A very simple question. And you can make your own judgment on that. But I have to tell you, his answer is the worst of all of them. And it scares me, because it's a trend that we see in a lot of politicians, that they think that they don't have to answer the public, that they don't have to answer questions they don't like, and they don't have to justify positions they take that maybe the rest of the public does not agree with. That's just very upsetting to me. But that's something I wanted to address, it because the red flag bill, I'm very, very much against this, and I believe that we need to raise awareness, because I can tell you, I've talked to local news stations, statewide news organizations. I've talked to, dozen, maybe 2 dozen politicians throughout the New York's 22nd district, well, actually, central New York, southern tier. And I can tell you, of all the news organizations I've spoken to, of all the politicians I've talked to, of all the lawyers I've talked to about this, nobody knows what's going on. That's scary. We're talking about taking away your Second Amendment rights, taking away your kids, and nobody knows about it. Nobody knows that this is happening. That's scary. It is. You should be terrified. Someone is looking to take away your kids and your guns, and you don't know what that is. By the way, in case you want to look up the bill itself, it's A11148. Again, it's A11148. And I am looking to speak with the NRA and a few other organizations. I've been talking to the Religion of Arms, which you can find on Facebook, the Liberty First Foundation. You can look them up. I've been looking Warm Barrel News, which is on Facebook, Scope New York. I've talked to them. I'm speaking to a lot of the Second Amendment advocacy groups about this red flag bill, because it's so important. It's so important when someone's trying to take away your rights and you know nothing about it. And I hope to bring up more attention to that. By the way, guys, don't forget, you can ask any question. I'm here for you guys. So, and I know Facebook cuts people in and out, so I apologize. And if you need to, you can always listen to either see this again on Facebook, or you can go to the No Soundbites Allowed podcast, and this will be played there. It's being recorded as we speak. So I'll make sure that you're able to hear every word of what's been said, so that you don't miss anything. Because I know Facebook plays games. They don't like to have certain views out there or people discussing them. But let me also go on. So I know I wanted to talk about the red flag laws. I wanted to talk about the exclusive interview with Donna Lupardo, the Assemblywoman of the 123rd District. By the way, there is currently, there's Donna Lupardo running for that race, and There is a libertarian who is out who is getting petitions right now. He may or may not get onto the ballot. So that's something that if someone is interested, they can let them know. Otherwise, Donna Lupardo is otherwise unchallenged in her position. There is no Republican, no conservative that is running against her this year. So if the libertarian doesn't make it to the ballot, then Donna Lupardo will win instantly. And we'll find out about that on August 22nd. That's when the petitions will go in, and we'll see if any other challenger comes up. But at this moment, to my knowledge, there is only Sean Szymanski, who I've done an interview with as well, for the 123rd District. If he gets the petitions in, he will be her challenger. Otherwise, she wins that race, just so people know. And also, since I brought it up, in the 122nd District, Clifford Crouch is in a primary against Nick Libis, who's a Republican as well. So they have a primary, which will be on September 13th. But they're currently both looking to be on the ballot. And there is a libertarian, Eric Bosworth, who is looking to challenge them. And at this time, there is no other challenger besides that. So it's either one of the two Republicans, and if the petitions come in, a libertarian. Otherwise, it'll be pretty much an automatic race in that race as well. Kind of interesting to see how many races are automatic, that there are no challengers. It's just instant wins for certain candidates, which I disagree with. People should always be challenged, always. And there should always be some kind of question, because no one's perfect. And I strongly believe in term limits. And that's for everyone, not just the president, but every elected official. If you have the ability to be elected to an office, I strongly believe that you should have a term limit, that you should not be able to just be in there forever, kind of like Chuck Schumer or Kirsten Gillibrand or Nancy Pelosi or, well, there's a whole list. And they're Republicans and Democrats alike. I'm not just picking on one side. I don't think anyone should have the ability to go decades as an elected official, holding the same position. I disagree with that. I just don't think it's right, because that's where corruption comes from. Look at Cuomo. He's only been around 8 years, and look at the corruption that surrounds him. By the way, I do want to say hello to Joseph Anthony and Mike Tance. I see they're both in, and I'm happy to see you. If anyone does have a question, please do let me know. Mike, you may be interested. I've been talking about the red flag laws, Bill A11148. I know you cover a lot of news. And by the way, also congratulations personally. So I want to say that to you. But you may want to check out the red flag bill legislation that's out there. And also the interviews I've had with Clifford Crouch, Donna Lupardo, and Anthony Brindisi on these bills. You will be surprised. Mike has worked with the press as well, and I believe you will find some interesting news about that, and I'll be happy to talk to you about it. Now, is there anyone else who has a question? Please just type it up. If you want to come on camera, let me know, and I'll put you on here on Facebook Live, and we'll broadcast that as well, because I'm always interested in what you think, and what are the issues that you think are important in this week, and what you want to talk about. Obviously, I'm big on the Second Amendment, so that's one of the things. I'm big on the First Amendment, so that's why I was talking about the Student Journalist Free Speech Act, which I think is very important. And there was some conversation with Donna Lupardo about hemp legislation that's going on and how that's affecting people, as well as a public service announcement that there are new Social Security cards coming out. So some people will be receiving that has no numbers on it, but it is a Social Security card. And watch out for this scam. This is important. Let people know about this. If someone is calling, say they call, depending on your age, they either call you or they call your mom or your grandmother or something like that. And if they're saying, hey, we're calling from the Social Security Department, we want to make sure you got your new Social Security card. Please read us for confirmation. Tell us what your Social Security number is. That is a scam. Do not provide anyone with your Social Security number over the phone. The Social Security Department knows that the cards are going out without the number on it. Do not tell anyone that. They do not need to be confirmed. This is an important issue for public service. Um, that is a scam. If someone's calling you saying that, that is a scammer and they're trying to steal your information. Please do not do that. The Social Security Department knows that you have cards that are being issued now that do not have a Social Security number on it. It's not supposed to. Do not tell anyone. So that's a public service announcement. Donna Lupardo made me aware of it. I want to spread that news and let people know about that because that's a big deal. That's very important. So let's talk about Governor Cuomo. Does anyone think Governor Cuomo is not corrupt? I mean, I'm serious about this. Is there anyone who believes that Governor Cuomo isn't the center of all the corruption in New York State? We're talking about the Buffalo Billions, Percoco, Moreland Commission, all of that. Does anyone think that he is not, Sheldon Silver, Dean Skelos? This man has been surrounded by some of the biggest scandals of corruption in our nation, or more importantly in New York State, since Tammany Hall. And if you don't know what Tammany Hall is, please look that up on Google, and you'll see it's one of the things that New York State is infamous for. But he's completely surrounded. Everybody seems to be corrupt. He goes over to Puerto Rico, and Puerto Rico has its governor. They get arrested for corruption. I mean, literally, wherever Cuomo goes, there's more corruption everywhere he goes. He goes to Puerto Rico. Suddenly, there's arrests on corruption charges there. Is there anybody who deals with Governor Cuomo that isn't corrupt? Because it doesn't seem like it. It seems like everyone he knows is corrupt. We're seeing charges on people left and right constantly about corruption, and it involves Governor Cuomo. And when you think about that, he is that surrounded by corruption. I mean, literally so surrounded by corruption that when he goes to Puerto Rico ostensibly for hurricane relief, because why, I don't know. There's absolutely no reason why we should have spent public dollars for him to go to Puerto Rico, have a vacation, because he didn't help anyone. He didn't do anything. Governor Cuomo is not an electrician. He didn't help. He's not an engineer. He didn't build anything. He went there to talk to a couple of politicians, talk about presumably corruption, given what the result was, and he spent our taxpayer dollars on that. Why? He had no reason. He's the governor of New York, not of Puerto Rico. He has no reason to be in Puerto Rico. He has no reason to go over there. What he needed to do was assign any resources that we were going to give Puerto Rico and assign it. He could have done anything and everything he did in Puerto Rico over a phone call or a video chat. He had absolutely no reason to be there. So I'm very upset about that. But he is a corrupt individual now. But when you think about it, he's corrupt. But yet, if you're looking at the polling, it's incredible. And I'd like to bring up the poll from Quinnipiac. Quinnipiac had the most recent poll. I believe it was July 13th, that they had just done a poll on the New York governor's race. Now, for some reason, their site is down, so I can't give you the exact poll information. And I don't know why Quinnipiac's page is down. But essentially, we see that currently, Governor Cuomo is at 49%. That's this. He's got a 49% chance of winning. That's insane. The man is surrounded by corruption. As far as I can tell, there isn't a single person on the face of the earth that does not think Governor Cuomo is absolutely corrupt. And yet, given all that corruption, he's leading the race for the governor. He's beating Cynthia Nixon approximately 59% to 23%. She's got a 23% chance of winning. That is ridiculous. Well, ridiculous on two levels. One, that Cuomo's got almost 60% of Democrats on his side, but also because Cynthia Nixon has 23%, which is absolutely insane. She is not what I would classify as a Democrat. She's a socialist, as she has admitted herself. She's a progressive. She's the extreme of the Democratic Party, and I don't believe most rank and file members of the Democratic Party agree with her viewpoints. From what I can tell, they don't. So she's doing incredibly well. Against Mark Molinaro, and I want to say hello to Melanie Tierras, who's back, and she's with us. Molinaro versus Cuomo, according to Quinnipiac University, is 57-31. That means that's 57 for Cuomo versus 31 for Mark Molinaro. That is huge. Considering that the Republican is the most likely choice of all the candidates, and there are 6 candidates in that race, you would think that he would be doing better. Given that, again, Cuomo is absolutely corrupt. He is surrounded by absolute corruption, billions and billions of dollars of corruption, dozens and dozens of people of corruption, all center around Governor Cuomo. We see that New York State is the 50th most business unfriendly state. We have the highest taxes in the nation, second highest. And we're losing we've lost 1.2 million people. We're losing about 100,000 people per year, 200,000 people per year because of the policies of Governor Cuomo. He's destroying the state. We're going to lose at least 2, possibly 3 congressional members of Congress, which means our power in government is being whittled away. We're losing everything in New York State. We're losing business. We're losing legislative power. We're losing income. The burden on the middle class is growing exponentially. In 3 years, according to the comptroller, DiNapoli, we're looking at in 2021, New York State will be $18 billion in debt. We will literally double our debt in the next 3 years. That New York State will be $18 billion in debt. We will be considering bankruptcy as a state under Governor Cuomo and his policies, and yet he leads Mark Molinaro 57-31. That just shocks me. Not that necessarily Mark Molinaro is going to win, but to be that much of a difference, we're talking about 26 points, I don't understand. And possibly it's because Mark Molinaro really hasn't said much. I don't know much about him. He hasn't really been out and about and talking. And he doesn't have the greatest lieutenant governor either, because his running mate seems to like the SAFE Act, which I know a lot of gun advocates are very upset with, including myself. As a Second Amendment advocate, I do not like his choice of partner. So Mark Molinaro has a long way to go, and he needs to show something to impress people if he wants to really make a challenge against a governor that is surrounded by corruption. But they're not the only ones in the race. Now, there is another person who's in the race who's very popular, and the next leading person in the race after Cynthia Nixon, after Mark Molinaro, would be Larry Sharpe, who I've spoken to. I did an hour and a half with him in an interview, also exclusive, and talking with Larry Sharpe here in the studio. And we were sitting across from each other and spoke for an hour and a half. He didn't have to do an hour and a half. Matter of fact, we weren't expecting to do. Initially, we're looking at 15 to 20 minutes. And he just decided that he wanted to talk more and let people know about his views. And so we have an exclusive hour and a half of that candidate talking about all of his reasons why he's running, what he believes he can do, how he believes his policies can be enacted, and how they're going to help New York State. And I find it interesting. I didn't agree with all of it. I still don't. I think he has certain flaws. But more importantly, that was his effort to make sure that the public would be able to see and find out and know exactly where he stands, exactly what he's looking to do, and what he offers. And it was a very interesting conversation. I know he's been up in Utica about 4 times that I'm aware of. I know he's been in Binghamton, New York at least 3 times that I'm aware of after my interview with him. Larry Sharpe's been everywhere. He's been running around all of upstate New York. And at the moment, according to Quinnipiac, he's at 3%, which is a bit surprising to me because I would have expected him to be higher. Now, there are 2 other individuals who are in the race. There's a total of 3 other people who are in the race. No one is higher than 3%. Larry Sharpe leads all of the other non-traditional party candidates. So outside of Democrats and Republicans, he is the next highest. Do I think he'll get more than 3% of the vote? Not sure. I know I hear a lot of people saying that, and I think people have seen that. Well, if you vote for Larry Sharpe, well, you're taking away a vote from Mark Molinaro, and therefore Mark's going to lose. Mark's at 31%. Larry Sharpe isn't the reason. Larry Sharpe is not taking away votes from Larry Sharpe if Mark Molinaro is at 31%. He's losing because of Mark Molinaro, not because of someone else. That I can say. You don't have a 26-point gap and say, well, it's because of someone else who's under 10%. And again, this is the first poll. There may be more popularity on Larry Sharpe than I think. He hasn't been included in polls previously, so we're not sure. But let's assume that even Larry Sharpe is at 10%. Let's say he's at 20%. Mark Molinaro is still losing. He's losing on his own. There is, no matter what the number is, if you're increasing Larry Sharpe's percentage, Mark Molinaro is staying the same, he's still losing. And that has to do with Mark Molinaro and what he's putting out there. So as a candidate, I would advise him, and I'm more than happy to have him on the No Soundbites Allowed podcast so we can talk about this, because I think this is something that's a trouble. I really believe that we need someone else besides Governor Cuomo in our election, and to be the governor of New York, because quite honestly, Governor Cuomo has done a horrible job. There is no way to defend that I am aware of. He has done nothing to help New York State. Our economy is worse off. Our debt is worse off. The corruption is skyrocketing. He is exclusionary. He is biased, politically biased in his viewpoints. He's been, even before he started running to the left, to the far, far left, to be more left than Cynthia Nixon, he was already to the left. He had already told people, 2013, that if you didn't agree with his viewpoints, if you believed in God, if you believed in the Second Amendment, the Constitution, and conservatism, get out the state, which they have. And that hasn't helped the state. But he got what he wanted. Is everyone else happy? No. He wants to be more progressive than California, which is 48th in business unfriendliness. They're one of the few states that we're beating on unfriendliness. And he wants to be the progressive capital, replacing California. California is in massive debt. They're having huge problems. Have you seen the tent cities that exist in California? And that's what he wants for New York State? I don't know. I don't agree with it. And I left out the whole thing about immigration. I mean, we are a sanctuary state. We are literally breaking the law. That's just wrong. How can we have a governor who says he wants to enforce laws and he wants to create laws, but as the executive, he is breaking the law by allowing New York State to be in a sanctuary state? There's a problem there. There's a big problem there. And that's an issue. And so I do not agree with this. And I do not believe that he's the best person for New York State. And we should have someone else in there. Now, you may disagree. Please let me know. I'm happy to hear your thoughts about it. Tell me where I've missed or what I'm not understanding, because I'll be happy to have that conversation, that discussion. And I think we should. But according to the Democrats I've spoken to, conservatives, libertarians, independents, Republicans, there is no one who tells me that I'm wrong in my assessment and my understanding of Governor Cuomo. There is no one who has told me something that Governor Cuomo is this glowing, wonderful figure that deserves to be governor. Essentially, he's the best option we've been shown. Of the people who are running, he's the least evil, some people believe, or that he's the best known of the people that we have. And it's kind of like the devil that we have versus the devil we don't know. At this point, I take the devil we don't know. Because, quite honestly, the devil we know is destroying our state. Think about it. We're losing 2 to 3 members of Congress in 2021. Once the census comes out, we're losing members of Congress. Can you imagine what the impact is going to be to our state? What is it going to be to our impact in the laws in the nation? Whoops, I don't know what that is. That we're going to lose that much control? That's huge. And that we're going to have $18 billion in debt for the state, and that we can't create businesses, that the unemployment rate in New York State is about 1.5 higher than the national average, that the unemployment rate in Binghamton is almost 2 points higher than the national average. We're dying as a business. The southern tier is in deep, deep trouble. Central New York has some of the highest unemployment rates in most of the Northeast. We are significantly underperforming, and that has to do directly with the economic policies and the overall policies of our governor, and of course the state assembly and our state senate. And I blame them all three groups for this, and we need to turn that around, because you can't have a productive government if you have a government that's not for the people or concerned with the people, but instead is concerned with a political subdivision, a microcosm, which is what I believe Citizen Action, the far left, Occupy Wall Street, Black Lives Matters, Antifa, Progressive Leaders of Tomorrow, all of those guys, they're all the same thing. They're all that same small pool. They like to make a lot of names for themselves, so it sounds like there's a big crowd. There really aren't. They're all members of the same organizations. They're all, three of them are in one group, two of them are in another, but they're all in the same groups and same meetings, same leadership. So they're all the same, and they're a microcosm. They're a micro political organization that just has a lot of yelling, and they don't represent. I don't believe those kind of groups, that far extremism, represents the rest of the Democrats. Just like Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, I don't believe that she represents most Democrats. I'd love to hear from Democrats and tell me, do you think that Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, who is being touted as the future of the Democratic Party, a democratic socialist who supports socialism, not capitalism, not the system that built our world and allows us to live the lives and the quality of life that we have right now, she would strip that away. That's what socialism does. To make everyone equal, it means that we, who are at the top of the quality of life, would lose all of our freedoms, lose our comforts and our quality of life, so that other people can be raised up. It's the same thing as the redistribution of wealth. Guess what? The poorest person that you know, is making more money than 65% of the world. Literally. This poorest person in America is worth more than about 65% of the world. So we have to take away for the rest of the world, and to live by this socialist ideal that everyone's the same, we have to take away from ourselves to give to someone else who never earned it, doesn't have it, and wouldn't appreciate it. I think that's just terrifying. But these are some of my thoughts on some of these issues, and there's a lot. And you may not agree. Not everyone does. But tell me where my reasoning is wrong. Tell me how I'm not getting it right. Tell me what part of the information that's available to us in the news. I'm talking about the conversations I have privately with various members of the press, various conversations I have with elected officials off the record of all the parties. I won't even get into that. Let's go with the facts that we have presented before us, that everyone has available, and let's have a conversation. Tell me, based on the information that's out there right now, where am I wrong? What is the information that you have? Think about it. If socialism was such a great idea, here's something I always love to ask, and no one ever has answered. If socialism is such a fantastic idea, so brilliant, why is it that the number of people who come into America, a capitalist country, is always significantly higher and exceeds by multiples the number of people who are going to socialist nations? Think about it. The number of people, you could add up the number of people who are going to Venezuela, which is currently on fire. The number of people who are going to Nicaragua, which is on fire. The number of people who are going to China or to Russia, all the North Korea. Add up all those people emigrating into those nations, and add up the number of people who legally are entering the United States. I won't even talk about the illegal immigrants into America. The legal individuals who are coming into America from socialist nations outnumbers and outweighs by multiples the number of people who are going to socialist nations. It tells you something there. When the immigration is over 5-1 for us, they have a problem. Why are we trying to become more like the places that everyone's leaving? I mean, you never hear anyone ask that question, but it's a pretty simple question. And I would ask that of Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. I would ask that of the Democratic Socialists of America. I would ask that of Bernie Sanders. I would ask that of anyone who wants to support a socialist ideal or communism. Why should we become what people are leaving? You know, besides the fact that everywhere that we look at socialism in the world, true socialism, you're looking at oppressive regimes like North Korea, or you're looking at total meltdowns in the country like Venezuela, and total oppression of the people like Cuba and China and Russia. I mean, it's just insane. But people tell me that these are wonderful things. You see in the news, they're like, oh, I'm so happy to be a socialist. Why? It's never worked anywhere. Short-term or long-term. It doesn't work. And it's always failed. We've seen that consistently. And it's so popular that people are leaving those countries to come to America. It tells you something right there. I mean, don't matter how much you want, it doesn't matter how much you want to try and advertise socialism. The reality is no one wants it because they keep coming here to a capitalist country and rejecting the socialism. I think I'm wrong. Ask anyone who's ever come from a socialist nation. Ask anyone who's left a socialist nation, why did they come to America? I guarantee you, it has nothing to do with socialism. It's not because America's becoming more socialist. It's because they're running away from the socialism. It's been such a devastating thing to them. So I do want to talk about that. And obviously I have a lot of passion about a lot of the ideas. But let's take a quick break for a second. And I want to talk about something completely different. How many people went over to, in Binghamton, there was this, on Thursday, there was an event, which was the Pops on the River, which is, we had the Binghamton Philharmonic playing on the riverside for the public. It was a free event. Ended with a great fireworks display. And they were playing a bunch of some popular songs, some classical music pieces. And it was really nice. And I have to tell you, I thought there were thousands, perhaps tens of thousands of people who were there. I'd say it was probably, if it wasn't 10,000, it was very close to 10,000 or more that were there. And I know the one complaint that a lot of people had was, of course, that the sound wasn't perfect, and it wasn't. Depending on where you were situated, because of the way sound was bouncing off buildings and their exact position. Some spots were better to hear than others. And so not everyone got to have the same experience with that. But they did try. And it's something that hasn't been done for years and years. And so they did bring that back. And I thought it was a great experience. And we saw the Philharmonic, they timed the 1812 with some cannon explosions, which is fantastic. You don't see that a lot. I know that Bob Murphy and the city of Binghamton worked very hard on creating a waterfall. So there was a waterfall effect coming off the bridge into the river for the event, and it looked really nice. It was a nice effect, and I know they've been working on that for a couple of days. And then it was capped off with a really nice fireworks display. I think that's where they spent a lot of the money, and it was really, really well done. They had some great fireworks there. I don't know which one it was, what they call it, but, shoots up and it explodes and then it explodes again. So it's a double explosion, which looked like just this big silvery gold kind of starlight kind of field. It was interesting. It was nice. And I did like that effect. And I was on the bridge over on the far side of the bridge. So I was perfectly lined up to be able to see the fireworks and listen to the band. and I did it on Facebook Live as well. So if you get a chance, you can always look that up and see the second half. I was only there for the second half of the program and the fireworks display. And I was in a great spot for the fireworks display, almost directly under them. So it looked really great. And I enjoyed that. And I know a lot of people had some complaints about that. I don't know if anyone wanted to talk about that, but it's interesting. And so that's one of the other things that I wanted to bring up. Wow, it's been an hour already? Just about. It's always interesting to see how quickly this goes when I have the conversation, because it just flows so well. And I do so enjoy speaking with everyone. Oh, I did not want to forget. I wanted to talk about Frank Johnson. And on Monday, I was at an event over in Vestal, New York. It was fantastic. It was with the Americans for the Restoration of for Restoring the Constitution, AFRTC. And they have a monthly meeting to talk about some of the issues and how they can help to influence the issues that are affecting the local community in Broome County and the surrounding area. It's a nice organization. They do a great job of concerned citizens. No one's elected. They're just concerned citizens. And matter of fact, they have a candidate forum that'll be coming up a little bit later in the year when the candidates gather to talk about why they're running for office and why you should vote for them and the issues that they're trying to work on, champion. And so that's a great organization. I'm happy to have been there. And they had their monthly meeting, which is the third Monday of every month. And I should also mention that on August 20th, I will be a featured speaker there, and I'll be making a presentation to the group and to the general public. It's open to the general public at the Vestal Public Library. But on Monday, I was there, and I was able to tape Frank Johnson, who is a member of the Religion of Arms and Liberty First Foundation, and he was making a presentation about the history of firearms. Some great information. I mean, he was going over everything about firearms, about the history of the Second Amendment, about the history of how firearms evolved from muskets and the single shots to what we see today with M16s, AK-47s, the sniper rifles, 50 caliber rifles, all of that. Everything in the entire chain. What's been available in the past, what were military firearms that now become civilian firearms, what is the difference between an assault weapon and a firearm, what is a semi-automatic rifle, how they function, the types of bullets that they use, how bullets are different and how they were created. I mean, this is really in-depth stuff. And I'm going to be presenting the entire tape, and that'll be up a little bit later today, of his entire presentation. But the thing that stands out to me the most about that conversation with Frank is his reason why he is a supporter of the Second Amendment and why he's part of the Religion of Arms, which you can find on Facebook, and Liberty First Foundation, which has its own website. One of the reasons why he's involved with all that is his story about his birth. And I think that was absolutely beautiful. And I do have that up on YouTube right now, and I'll include it as a link at the end of this so that people will be able to see what is it that motivated him to be a Second Amendment advocate for his entire life, to be a firearms instructor, to show other people how to properly use firearms to both defend themselves and to have fun. And I think Frank Johnson did a great job, and it was exceptional. I was very happy to have been there to be able to hear this. And I have to tell you, it was one of the most informative but yet entertaining discussions ever, because I know sometimes these things can get a little dry. I mean, it's politics. It's not Star Wars. But he made it very interesting, very lively, and you'd be surprised how quickly his presentation goes through all of the major issues, all of the major questions, all of the major topics that happen out there. And I think it was fantastic, and I want to thank Frank Johnson and the AFRTC for giving the opportunity to make that presentation so it can be available for the public. And I will, as I said, I will be presenting that shortly, and you'll see that video, which will contain all of that. And I'll include that shortly. So that's a little bit of some other news that I wanted to go over about the Second Amendment and Frank Johnson, the religion of arms, and that event with the AFRTC over at Vestal Public Library. It's a quiet day for questions today. Usually there's a few questions, especially on all of these things. So usually I expect a few more, but everyone's being quiet. I know a lot of people are over at the grassroots celebration today, and I know a lot of people are out of town because it is just before it's the end of July, beginning of August, and I know a lot of people are out there enjoying themselves, taking vacations. So I do appreciate every single person who's shown up here, every single one of you who have decided to listen in today, and I hope you're hearing things that are interesting and fun and a little different, because I do appreciate each and every one of you having done that, taking that time out of your day to spend with me a little bit, because I appreciate it. It makes it worthwhile. It makes all of this work that I do for free a little more worthwhile. And I know a lot of people think, well, you get paid by, a lot of people think that I get paid by the Republican Party. No. A lot of people think I work for one or this candidate or that candidate. No. They think I somehow am involved politically and I'm getting some kind of kickback or I get some kind of benefit. No. I get absolutely nothing. Every year I do this, and it costs me money, thousands of dollars every year, just because, and I do it because I believe in it. Quite honestly, that's the only reason. I believe that this is important to talk about these things, to make these change, make sure people are aware of what's going on, and change laws where we need to change them, to change our government where we need to. Because if we don't do that, then we go into anarchy and we lose everything. So it's important. And I know a lot of people think, well, you can't just do this because you do it. Yeah, I can. That's exactly why. Because I believe in doing it. Because I think it's important. And that's why. Now, if you're asking me, would I like to get a donation or two? Absolutely. Please send the money if you want to. Donate, because I could use it. But no one ever pays me for this. This is something I do for free because I have a passion for it and I believe in it. Hi, Scott. Scott Standard has come in. And if I didn't mention it before, Alan Shattuck is also watching. So I want to thank you for that as well. I appreciate you guys, every single one of you, for being involved, for checking this out, and being part of this process that we all are, because it's important. And let's see. We've had a lot of people on, and I'm not sure, there's a few other questions. I know we were going to cover a lot of things, and just to wrap, hey Scott, it's good to see you there. Just Scott, and for others who may have come in a little bit late, just to wrap up, I was talking about earlier that I had a interview with Donna Lupardo, an exclusive. We spent about 38 minutes talking about a lot of issues, and that went very well. One of the issues we were talking about is besides hemp legislation, we also talked about the issuance of new Social Security cards with the warning for the public to beware. If anyone ever calls you to ask for what your Social Security number is to confirm your new Social Security card, don't give it. That is a scam. So I do want to mention that again. We talked a bit about the red flag legislation that's out there and how that's going to affect everyone. Where you're denied your due process. By law, you are denied the ability to face your accuser. You're denied the opportunity to defend yourself. You're proven guilty until you are innocent. You're proven guilty and you're punished by law. And then you have to try and go through the process to prove yourself innocent. And this process can take away your kids. So we talked a little bit about that. We talked a bit about Clifford Crouch, Donna Lupardo, and Anthony Brindisi and their answers on this very important issue. And so we went over that a little bit. We talked about Governor Cuomo and the fact that he's leading in polls, leading the race for governor in New York State, even though he is completely surrounded by corruption, whether that's Percoco, the Buffalo Billions, when he goes over to Puerto Rico and people get arrested for corruption there. It's just amazing. The man is completely surrounded by corruption. I know of no one who thinks he's innocent, and yet he's still winning the New York governor's race. It is absolutely absurd. Talked a little bit about Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez and her quest for more socialism in America, the very thing that everyone in other countries are leaving, the very thing that's causing Venezuela to burn and Nicaragua to follow suit. It just amazes me. I just can't understand it. So we went through a little bit of that. So we've got about half an hour left, and I'm waiting for everyone's questions. And I'm thinking probably the one thing everyone's probably wondering about is President Trump. Is he a traitor? Did he commit treason? Is that one of the questions people are asking? And I really haven't touched on that until now. Hello, Ellis. Ellis Madison is with us. I haven't really discussed the question of, is President Trump a traitor? Because, one, it's been covered by a lot of news stations and everyone's been talking about it. But quite honestly, no, I don't think he is. I think it's actually a stupid argument. What we're saying is that the United States president, in negotiating and discussing with other nations, he should not be able to have a private conversation. That is just a bit insane. That our president, in conducting diplomacy with other nations, should not have any privacy. That's insane. That is something that we have never seen any other president be subjected to. No one has ever said to JFK, to Carter, to Clinton, to Obama, that you can't have a private conversation with another nation, that you can't discuss matters of international policy with world leaders without the public knowing every single word. That's insane. There's a reason why they are private meetings. There are conversations that have. I wouldn't be surprised if they're yelling, screaming, cursing each other out at certain points. Think about it in our own nation. We have Democrats and Republicans that are livid with each other, and our leadership has to talk with each other. And sometimes I'm sure those are very heated conversations, and they have that privately, because when the public hears about it, they don't need to know that there was, we spent 5 hours cursing each other out before we came to a conclusion of some compromise bill that actually makes sense. We don't need to know about that part. We do need to know, okay, here's the compromise bill, here is the legislation, here is the treaty that's been made, and here are the provisions of that treaty and those laws, and this is how it will affect the world. The process to get to that, no, we don't need to know. That's not important. If anything, that is a way to separate people and to divide them, because you had this argument on this issue or that issue, which may or may not even be relevant to the ultimate goal. So we're talking about peace, and they're arguing over some aspect of international policy that doesn't result in that, but they get through that to get to an objective that will create greater peace in the world. Do we need to know about all that? How does that help anyone? If anything, it hinders, because the more public you make it, the more publicized you make each and every single meeting and every word said in each and every meeting. And if there is no assurance of secrecy and privacy in those conversations, then you're going to see politicians politicking, world leaders politicking at every single step, because they know everyone is watching and listening to every word they say, and they never get to have an actual honest conversation. You'd be amazed how many times I can say this for myself. As a political commentator for the last 12 years, there aren't a whole lot of politicians in central New York that I don't know. There aren't a whole lot. I've spoken to almost everybody at some point. And I can tell you the private conversations I have doesn't always match up with the public conversations that I've had with these individuals and or what they've had with the public in general. So it's always very interesting. And to say that we're not able to do that is dangerous. But I see we have two questions. Two questions came up. One from Tina DeBella and one from Scott Stannard. So let me answer. Tina says, quote, I had to stop even listening to news about Trump from the media. They are the most ridiculous and biased information source. They are not news. They are just anti-Trump everything. It has gotten to the point, if the so-called news media says something anti-Trump, I just tune them out. What happened to lawyer-client confidentiality? That's a good question, and I'm going to answer that in 1 second. But I also want to go to Scott's question, who said, quote, in my opinion, everything that President Trump is done by design. When people are on him about something, he'll send out tweets about something else and get people talking about that. He certainly didn't get elected by being dumb. So I think those two are related. And let me address that. First of all, yeah, lawyer-client confidentiality is supposed to be a thing, except in the express case where a law or a crime has been committed. That's the exception to the rule. I don't understand why we're trying to break that, but other than there are people who are looking for ways to try and undermine our president, which is scary. Think about that. We have a group of politicians and organizations that are looking to undermine our president. If someone were to have said that and said that was Obama, President Obama or President Clinton or President anybody, you would say that's wrong and that's insane and we should never do that. We all want our president to do the very best job they can for our nation so that our nation is in a better place. That is the goal of the president. And whether we all agree or not with all the steps involved, that is the ultimate goal. Undermining that president by trying to find ways to destroy the presidency, because you're not just destroying President Trump. Every time that people are attacking the power and actions of President Trump, they're attacking the power and policies of the office of the president. And that's a big deal. That's a big difference. People don't realize that. When you're talking about the president cannot have a private meeting with other world leaders, then you're saying the president, and again, it's not just President Trump, it is any president cannot have that. So whether there's a Democrat that's in office or a Republican in office or a conservative or whomever, they're no longer going to have the ability to have private negotiations or private discussions. How do you promote peace when you can't have a private, non-political conversation? You can't. And that's a big problem, which is not being looked at, because right now there's a lot of emotion. And this is where I think Tina is a little different. They're blasting out a lot of emotion. I'm a political commentator. I do emotion to an extent. I am addressing personally the ideas and the policies that are out there. It is a commentary. It is not news reporting. When I can do news reporting, when I was speaking with Clifford Crouch, Donna Lupardo, when I spoke to Eric Szymanski or Eric Bosworth or Sean Szymanski, when I'm interviewing State Senator Fred Akshar, when I'm interviewing individuals, that is news. And I understand, and that is a very different approach, and it's a very different conversation, because that is more, there is no commentary there. That is, here are the facts. Here is what's going on. Here is what we're discussing. That's news. So I can do that, and I have done that. And then there's commentary, which is what we're doing right now. To take away and to use the news, a news program, to make commentary is wrong. It's a disservice to the public, and I really hate that, because it destroys the actual fundamentals of what you're trying to do, and it destroys the ability to positively influence the laws that you want to see influenced. So it's not that they're being anti-Trump. I see it far worse. They're being anti-president. They're anti-office of the president by attacking him in so many ways on all of the fundamental things he does. Mind you, President Trump is absolutely unconventional. He creates some of the problems himself. Look at his wording that he uses. Look at the tweets that he sends out and the fact that he does send out tweets. Is that standard to what we see in politics? No. Is that conventional? Not at all. Is it effective? Sometimes. Does it cause more problems than it solves? Not necessarily. But at the same time, that doesn't mean we destroy the presidency because one person, one president is doing something unconventional. And at the end of the day, is being very effective by being unconventional. We have to go with our president and support him. Give him guidance, give him feedback, but support him in the things he's doing because we want our nation to be better. Perhaps that's lost on a lot of people, but that's how I have always felt, and I think that's important. And to Scott, to address part of your thing, and Tina, just to clarify, that's why another part of why lawyer-client confidentiality is important. If we destroy it for the president, we destroy it for everyone. And it does no one any benefit. It doesn't help anyone by destroying this standard cornerstone of our judicial system. And Scott, I agree with you. President Trump does pretty much everything on purpose. That man is very, very, very smart. There is no question. You don't get to have $1 billion business and maintain that $1 billion business in so many aspects of entertainment and real estate and so many other aspects. You don't get to create that if you don't know what you're doing. So to anyone who calls him stupid, they really don't understand what he's doing. He's not stupid, man. Now, he may be unconventional. He may not be pleasant or your best friend. No one's saying that you have to want to have a beer with him. Then again, I didn't want to have a beer with President Obama either. I don't want to have a beer with, Bill Clinton I probably would want to have a beer with. And probably not the second Bush, but definitely Reagan. But that's not why they're elected. Who cares? You don't have to like the president. So people confuse not liking the process the president is using versus the person himself. You don't have to like the president. You don't even necessarily have to like the process they use as they do their duties. What you do have to like is, are they being effective at being president, at the goal of the president, enforcing our laws, maintaining national security, increasing the peace, defending the nation, growing the nation. These are the essentials. Are we seeing that? The answer so far is yes. And this has been a very strong yes. Why tear him apart on that? He has a plan. It seems to be very clear. He has a plan. It's worked with North Korea. As best as North Korea can be worked with, he has done it. And we're seeing in Russia that they're having a conversation. They're going to continue a conversation. That could be a positive. It's still way too early to know. When we see, we're talking about the trade deals. Look at Canada. Canada has been begging us to come back and renegotiate our trade deals with them, which is very important. Robin Scoville's with us now. So they've been asking to go back to the negotiation table for, even though they're upset with us, they want to renegotiate the trade agreements we have. That's a win. We're seeing in Germany, they've come out and they've said that they want to, hey, Robin Scoville Clark, hey. But in Germany, they have come to us already and said that they want to renegotiate some of our trade deals. We're seeing this with a lot of our trade partners around the world. I mean, trade has been one of the big things everyone's been screaming about. China is not able to maintain tariffs and deny our products for an extended period of time. They need us more than we need them. And as long as that is a true fact, and that's going to be a true fact for at least decades, half a century to a century from now, that's still truth, then they have to come to the negotiation table. And that's a long-term tactic. Our president isn't looking at politics in the short term, which we see a lot of people do. We're seeing most politicians nowadays are looking for 30-second sound bites and a short-term response so that they can turn around and say, look, I did something. Doesn't matter if it's right or wrong. Thus, we have the red flag laws, and as a reaction to, and Frank is watching, it's good to, I was just talking about you, Frank. I had a bit of a time talking about the experience with you, but I'm talking about the president right now, and you think about it. We see a lot of politicians today, they go into these instant responses. So we have the shooting down in Florida, okay, and the Parkland shooting. And the response, the knee-jerk response is, well, we have to do something. That's what the politicians say. We have to do something. Okay. And they do the wrong thing. See, there's a big difference between doing something and doing the right thing. They just did something, which is create red flag laws. And they decided that, well, as a response to doing something, they're going to take away people's due process. They're going to make people guilty before being innocent. And they're going to punish people based on accusations, which is throwing out our entire legal system. The whole judicial system is thrown out the water because they're doing something. That's wrong. That is absolutely wrong. And we should be very upset with politicians who do a knee-jerk reaction and say, well, we're going to pass the wrong thing just because we have to do something, because we need to make a message. I'm sorry. If you're going to make a message, make the right message. If you're going to do something, do the right thing. And if it takes you more than a minute to do that, that's okay. And if it doesn't take effect tomorrow, that's okay. I'd rather have something that took a little longer to figure out and works and takes a little longer to implement, but yet will be more effective and actually do what it's supposed to do, rather than, well, we did something, it's completely screwed up, it doesn't work, and it doesn't help anyone, but we did something. I'm sorry. I don't, a lot of people close their eyes and they say, well, I feel good because we did something. I'm sorry, it didn't do anything. You didn't do something. You just made a lot of noise. It didn't help. We can put out a whole bunch of things. You can say they've put out gun bans before. It didn't stop anyone from shooting. You didn't stop evil people. You didn't stop people who made bombs and have tried to kill people and have sometimes successfully done so. This is stupid. And I understand it's there to make people feel good. In a crazy, difficult world, it's that idea that, well, we have to do something so I can sleep at night. Well, how about this? How much better will you sleep at night knowing you did the right thing? How much better will you sleep at night knowing that you were actually effective? So that instead of saying, well, I'll sleep okay for a night because we did something, even though it was wrong and it didn't help, and you sleep good for one night, and then the next day you get more news showing that everything you did was absolutely useless and had no impact and helped no one. Or you could go to sleep and wait. You can go and have a couple of troubled nights, work on the problem, get it right, and then you can sleep, and you don't get that news immediately afterwards or at all that says that you failed. How about that? Let's not fail. Let's actually make a plan that works so we don't have to have those headlines anymore. Maybe it's a novel idea, but it is an idea I have, that we should try something like that rather than just running out there and just doing stuff. It's like a chicken running around without its head in traffic. And Robin says, quote, it's called common sense, and Washington is lacking it. Absolutely. But why is Washington, D.C., why are they lacking it? Because it's not just in D.C. It's in local politics. It's in national politics. It's everywhere. And I know because, again, let's go to the red flag bills in New York State. That's not national. There are 6 states that have it, 11 states considering it, including New York, but it's not national. But why is New York considering it? Because of Florida. Every single politician I've spoken to who has voted for this, even though no one in the news knows about it, no one else is talking about it, I am the only one who's doing interviews and asking this question in the media. But everyone I have spoken to about it, who have voted for it and therefore know about it, the answer is always the same thing. Well, we have to react to things like Florida, the Florida Parkland shootings. We have to do something. We have to do something to prevent this. We have to make a statement about this. Okay, well, that's fine. But how about you do something right? I personally do not believe, and I've said this to each of those politicians, and I say it again publicly, I do not believe that just doing something for the fact of having done it is an answer. I do not believe that denying people their rights taking away their due process, splitting up families as a consequence of just doing something is going to make anyone better off. You're not stopping the problem. Due process will not stop taking away someone's due process, some criminalizing people and punishing them before the fact, because of something that you accused them of, doesn't stop someone from going out and doing something evil. They can get a car, they can get a bomb, they can do anything to do that. Good to see that you were here with us, Scott. I'm happy about that. Thank you. Scott had to take off. And it's almost time for me to finish up anyway. But I think that's very important. You can't just do something. That is a very common thought. And listen to all the news. Listen to the major news media. Listen to politicians at every level, and you will hear them say this over and over again. We have to do something. We're going to do something. You hear a whole bunch of these far left groups it's their mantra. Do something. Do something. We have to do something. No, you don't. No. Just running around doing stuff randomly doesn't mean you're going to trip by accident into the right thing. And it doesn't mean that, and it doesn't justify harming more people than you're trying to save. You're taking away due process from every single person in America, in New York State, with these red flag laws. And it's an issue that I'm very, very much following up on. I'm not letting this go because we should not enact these laws. You're taking away people's due process. You're splitting up families in the name of doing something. 19 million people in New York State will lose the right of due process to maybe try to prevent one or two events that happen anyway, that cannot be stopped. It's not going to stop it. Look at all the number of shootings where someone has gotten a gun illegally. Taking away their guns, their legal guns, doesn't mean they can't get a firearm. Look at how many of these shooters, these mass shooting events, have people with bombs. You can't, that's not even legal to have, to make, or to use. And yet they do it anyway. Taking away their firearms doesn't stop that. How many people have used cars to commit mass murder? A lot of them. In New York State, in Los Angeles, and also in Las Vegas, there's been a few of them. Taking away someone's firearms and taking away their kids is not going to stop them from using a car. So when you say we're doing something, no, you're not. You're not doing anything. What you're doing is making sure that you get a vote. At the end of the day, that's the main thing. And I'm not saying that everyone has that belief. That's the only reason why they do it. I'm not saying that. I'm not saying that about anyone who voted for these bills. But I also believe that the answer that we have to do something is not a legitimate answer because it doesn't resolve anything. Just running around making laws without thinking about the consequences of those laws, without realizing how much you're affecting the rights and freedoms of people, do not justify that. And so when we think about it in terms of President Trump, as Scott had mentioned, let's bring it back in full circle here. President Trump isn't just doing things. He isn't randomly running around going, I'm just going to do stuff. He actually seems to have a plan. He's doing things to get to a goal. Now, that process is very uncommon for a lot of people nowadays because we're used to someone just running around just doing stuff. And it doesn't matter if the various parties will protect that person and say, oh, it was a great thing that you tried to do, and it's good that you did that. No, it's not. No. But President Trump is actually trying to get to a goal. And as far as we can see with North Korea, it's to create greater peace. For Russia, it would seem to be the same thing with our trade partners to improve our economy. He has a goal. He is trying to attain that goal, somewhat unconventionally, but that is the goal. He's not just running out there just doing stuff because, well, I did something. Don't you feel good? No. And it doesn't mean that he's getting and President Trump isn't getting an immediate gratification or an immediate response. Because guess what? Today you feel great. Tomorrow and for the next year, you're not. There's a big difference. There's a big difference. Think of President Obama with the cash for clunkers. Remember that? It's a great example of this. Cash for clunkers was created in 2010. And the idea was that we need to stimulate the economy. And this is a way that we're going to create more jobs. We're going to get better cars on the roads, more gas efficiency, lower pollution, and everyone's going to win. It's a win-win for everybody. Except it wasn't. It was a knee-jerk reaction because the Obama stimulus failed. It failed, an abject failure by every standard that it was created with. Everything that was promised about it failed. So, given that failure, they needed something else. They came up with cash for clunkers. And what that did is, and there have been several studies on this since then, that have proven that we lost $4 billion on cash for clunkers. I believe it was billion, might be 4 trillion. We lost $4 billion on cash for clunkers because it completely failed to do anything positive. We didn't lower the carbon emission rates. We didn't improve traffic safety. We didn't improve the number of jobs. It didn't create any jobs. In fact, it cost us jobs. And it did not improve the auto industry. It failed at every level. But he did something. Well, he did something that actually had a worse result than what he was trying to do. If he had done nothing at all, the economy would have been better off than doing cash for clunkers. But yet, he did something. And people were so happy. Look, he did something. Isn't that great? It's a good thing. He has a good idea. It's a great idea, except it's a stupid idea that didn't work on any level. And we have the proof of that. Just doing something isn't the answer. And expecting our politicians to just do anything, if we're placing that impression on them that they should just do something, means we're going to get responses that are going to be absolutely wrong. And so I would say, and this is the long way around to Scott's question, but do I think President Trump has a plan? Yes. Do I think we need to give him the time to make that plan apparent and working? Yes. Should we support our president? Absolutely, no matter which president it is. And do I think we should change our expectations of not having somebody just do something tomorrow and be patient and let them do the thing that's right? That takes a little bit longer to be put together and has a longer, more positive effect? Absolutely, I do. That's where I believe it is. Will I be right? I don't know. Not everyone will agree, but maybe some will. But with that said, we've been on so far for an hour and a half. It's been a great conversation. For anyone that may have missed this, and I know a couple of people just jumped on at the very, very end here, and I do thank you for jumping in. But at the very, very end, anyone who missed it, it's going to be on Facebook. You can catch it from the very beginning. If you don't want to look at it on Facebook, or Facebook is blocking it because they do that, they don't like conservative thought, then you can go to the No Soundbites Allowed podcast and you'll be able to hear it. There will be links on the No Soundbites Allowed podcast that'll be able to link to all the things that we've been talking about so you can learn more information for yourself and understand what we've been saying. And other than that, I want everyone to have a great Saturday. Remember, there is the Martini Walk down in Binghamton today. Take some time, go out and enjoy it, have some fun. And until then, I look forward to speaking with you all at the very next No Soundbites Allowed podcast. Talk to you soon.
I ain't had you in weeks. I don't even remember how you taste on my lips. Used to be something I needed. Now I see I had a reason. I was bummed out, stressed out, yeah. And you made me feel the best I had. For a minute I thought I needed you. I'm breaking the habits that I had, 'cause look where it's got me. Searching for myself, didn't know I lost me, I ain't no saint. Let the devil have a way, I regret it every day. I was bummed out, stressed out, yeah. Then you made me feel the best I had. For a minute I thought I needed you. Now I'm seeing through all of the reasons that I made up in my head. I'm breaking the habit. I'm breaking the habit. I'm breaking the break the habit. Oh, break the habit. Break the habit. Kill. Break the habit. Oh, break the habit. Break the habit. Kill. Break the habit. Oh, break the habit. Break the habit. Kill. Break the habit. Oh, break the habit. Break the habit. I'm breaking the habit. I'm breaking the habit. I'm breaking the I'm breaking